Om Shanti. Good evening, good day, whatever time you're listening to this. Welcome to interview with Raj Yogi. Our topic today is spiritual integrity and inner clarity. As usual, we will start with a reflection experience. When the body, the physical body, is properly aligned, when there is integrity of the spine, the body is pain-free. This is a sign of physical integrity. There is no pain. This also applies to the self. The sign, I am in a state of spiritual integrity, properly aligned, in a powerful awareness, a true state. The sign is no pain, no sorrow, complete inner peace, regardless of what's going on around me. Deep inner peace. And that sense of inner peace slows the mind down, reduces the clutter in the mind, the upheaval. It's like the surface of a stormy sea becoming calm and clear. As my mind becomes more calm, I become more clear. From that spiritual integrity, that state of inner peace, there is more clarity, less upheaval. Om Shanti.
Om Shanti. It's welcome to interview with Raj Yogi. So, tonight's topic is a continuation of spiritual integrity, but in relation to how it affects our clarity, capacity to see. And for those who have joined the last two sessions, which was really introducing what spiritual integrity is, We're really exploring about detachment, and that is definitely not the word itself, but the experience is something that many souls grapple with. And we were discussing those last two sessions about detachment is not cutting things out, it's not disconnecting, and to realize that when there is detachment, that you can see it. So this, again, we're going back to this word integrity. We talked about in the last two sessions, is there an overlap between spiritual integrity and this word integrity that we actually often use in day-to-day life? And I'm not sure if souls would or think that there's an intersection between integrity and clarity.
I think, definitely, I don't know why every time I hear the word integrity, I think about, there's the term in engineering, of course, for something to maintain its integrity, for an element or a metal to maintain, but I think about integrity of character. And a particular story always comes into my mind. I don't know, maybe it's the first novel where it gave me such an impression of integrity of character, and it was To Kill a Mockingbird, which is an American classic. And the main character, a lawyer, Atticus, really there is such a focus around the integrity of his character. And one of the things I took away from that experience through that character was how easy decision making becomes when there's integrity of character. Integrity, of course, means that a particular state remains intact. So if I have a particular state, in this case the character, the qualities of the character, the core values of the character remain intact. They are not compromised or influenced by anything. And that is the core values through which decision making happens, choices happen. So decisions should be remarkably easy to make, very clear, but they become complicated because we become compromised. But if I am very clear on my core values and the integrity of character, then it's extremely easy to make decisions. So I think that the clarity definitely has a connection to integrity of character, in the sense that it doesn't create any compromising or blurring of the lines. Everything is quite clear.
We talked about this last week, about, and I know you used the example of a paramedic, and I was sharing about, it's not usually encouraged for healthcare professionals to treat patients who they're related to. So in terms of this aspect of integrity, what is it that becomes challenging in terms of that clarity when you're saying that these core values should be very apparent in oneself?
So when it comes to spirituality, and this is where detachment comes in, there is an alignment of the self, a sort of pure or true, authentic sense of self. And what we begin to do, what compromises that authentic state, is we begin to attach to things, to define ourselves relative to other things rather than to our original or pure self. So the most common example, or the deepest example of this, is the body. So I begin to define myself relative to this body, not to your body, but to this body, because I think this is my body, I think this is me. This is now compromising my spiritual integrity. So these attachments, or defining ourselves relative to physical things, positions, other people, possessions, all these different things that we call mine, these attachments are compromising my spiritual integrity. So when we detach and realign with our true sense of self, then there's nothing that's confusing my decision-making processes, my clarity, but it's all of these sort of attachments that actually are muddying the water. So, I think we can think of so many examples of this where I might come to a decision, but then I might think, oh, but that decision might compromise my job, or that decision might compromise my relationship, or that decision might mean I might lose that person's favor, so it's really complicating the situation. So when I think, but in my heart, and it's very interesting because this was our meditation this morning, that within each of our heart, and sometimes we use the word conscience, but I think we like the word heart a little bit more, there is an imprint or memory of our pure or true or authentic self. We sometimes use the word highest potential. So that's in my heart all the time. All the time that memory is there. So as I perform actions, the heart is constantly sensitive to, are the actions I'm performing in alignment or in agreement with this authentic true self? And if it's not, this sits very heavy in the heart or the conscience. That's really how the happiness goes. So it's so, the heart, it's very clear in our heart what is the accurate or authentic thing to do. But because of all of these other sort of strings pulling us that we've created, it's starting to make things very complicated and going against the heart.
We have morning sessions every day. And I think it was yesterday, but it was this one aspect of don't try to be loving, but really practice detachment, and then you will be loved by all. And what does that mean? Because we think sometimes, oh, you mean don't be loving. What, am I supposed to be cold? I'm supposed to disconnect, step away from people, and somehow they'll know I love them? Like, there seems to be a bit of, perhaps maybe a lack of clarity of what that really means. I practice detachment, and I will be more loving.
So we are, in this example, loving, we're going at this attempt to be loving basically the wrong way. So we are loving beings. That is our innate state, is to be loving. And you might be listening and saying, oh, there's lots of times I don't feel very loving, which means that we have disconnected at those moments from our innate state. So what we want to, and we've disconnected from our innate state and connected to something that is not innate. And that's why it's taking us so much effort. But our true state is naturally loving. So when we say detach, I want to detach from the things that are suppressing my true state. Then I will have to make no effort to be loving, because it naturally happens when I'm in my innate state. So the example we were talking about this morning is the bird that's hanging tight to the branch and saying, I gotta fly. And that's what birds do, is they fly, but they have to let go of the branch. So it's attached to the branch and it's flapping like mad and saying, oh, I'm making so much effort and there's absolutely no flying going on here. Yes, because you have to let go. And then what you do naturally will happen. So I need to detach from really the wrong method, basically, and allow space for what is natural to come out. So when we say detach, it's a bit of an incomplete sentence, and I think that's why it confuses. Detach from what? And somehow we filled in the blank by saying from everything.
Yeah, detach from people.
Yeah, and that's not, we're detaching from that which is not innate, not true. We're detaching from falsehood, illusions, to allow, to free, to live. So I think of detachment as liberation. I am freeing or liberating that which is innate. We are naturally loving beings. So if we're not feeling it, it just means we've attached to some illusion that's suppressing it.
So, just wanted to clarify a bit more about this detachment piece. In terms of what I am letting go of, because that slogan, I think perhaps maybe this is that point that we were talking about of letting go, and we think that maybe we might not even be aware of what it is we're letting go of. And while you share that, there are times when letting go isn't a good thing. Like that phone continues to slide to one side. So I'm going to go and address that so that phone doesn't topple over while you discuss a little bit more about detachment.
So I guess I'm just filling time here right now. Those who are watching, this is going to be exciting for you. I hope we don't lose you. So yeah, this this idea of, I think there's many instances where we use detachment and it has a very positive, now we're listing, has a very positive, we have a very positive understanding around it. So I'm going to give you a very, very simple exercise right now so that you can experience that. So I want you to take your right hand, and I want you, we'll wait for Nora to have a seat. Take your right hand, and I want you to close it into a fist. Right? So we're holding. And if you find it easier to put something in your hand to get a feeling for this, go ahead. But imagine, there could be a pen or whatever. You're holding it very tight. There you go. I want you to squeeze super tight. Super tight. Is that enjoyable? What would you like to do?
I want to let it go.
Let go. Let go.
I won't let this go.
So there's times when we have a very positive experience around letting go. So spirituality helps us to be very clear exactly what am I letting go of? I'm letting go of what is causing sorrow in the self. Right? So that's going to liberate something quite wonderful. So it enhances, it does not destroy or kill or suppress. It's actually going to liberate, free, enhance this incredible potential within the human spirit that currently is almost in jail, right?
Yeah, sometimes when we do give physical examples, sometimes trying to find that crossover to what that feels like spiritually becomes a challenge. And I don't know if it's because we know, physically speaking, what it feels like when I'm not gripping, for example, using his hand. But it seems like maybe for many it's like such a far, far memory that this state of letting go actually means there's a natural sense of me, not a nothingness. So what has your journey been like in terms of detachment? Maybe you were one of the lucky ones. It was like you heard detachment and like, whoa, totally understand what that means.
Yeah, I find it a really beautiful experience. And I think part of it because it's there's another problem.
We'll have to address that too.
We'll have to let it go. There's a replacement involved with the experience of detachment. So a bit like many think silence is emptiness. So there's not a perhaps positive experience around silence. What we actually are, I don't know if the top, okay, you didn't turn off that, okay. A positive experience in the sense that I am replacing in a way. So if someone is, and sometimes I can think of the mind is like a fist, and
they cannot hear us.
yeah.
Sorry, we'll see what we can do with that.
I'm not sure.
It's hard because it's too loud for those.
So sorry. We can turn the volume up on this. Please let us know if you can hear now. Let us know if this is better. Okay. If I move closer, is this any better?
It might be too loud for you too.
Yeah, we are technically challenged here because YouTube, let us know if this has gotten unclear to you.
Sometimes, so let us.
So we'll keep going, and we'll keep going. Sorry about that.
Thank you for pointing that out. I have a feeling that it's always been like that, and no one has said anything.
Yeah, no, we appreciate that. So if I think of my mind as like the hand, and very often our mind is holding on to, say, a situation in the past that we may have found a bit challenging or disturbing, so we want to let go, we want to detach, but we're holding tight, and sometimes we even think it might be unhealthy or disturbing or heartless not to be holding tight, that it's a sign of not really being very, there's not healthy, I'm not dealing with the situation, I'm not facing it, I'm denying. And what actually is quite interesting, is that the suggestion in spirituality is that I can have a different feeling towards that situation, not no feeling. That's not what detachment means, is that I have no feeling, but I could have a different feeling towards that situation. And so the heart is still engaged, there's still feelings, but spirituality is allowing me to let go of a current state I'm in. So I'm letting go of that in order to move into another state, not into no state. And I think that's what's happened around detachment, is that this feeling that I'm moving into a non-feeling, no state kind of place, again, that silence is empty, and detachment too in some ways is empty or heartless, whereas actually I'm moving into a different state, a different perspective towards it. And this is a delicate topic, so it's trying to find an example and hopefully not offend, but I remember being on a panel, and one of the people on the panel was a Holocaust survivor who would have now been in their 90s. They were a little boy during the Holocaust, and did land up in one of, I think, the worst concentration camps, and lost almost all the family, and etc. And it was very interesting listening to him speak about where he is now in his life with respect to that, what he's chosen to do with his inner world. And it was absolutely beautiful. There was no denial of what happened, clearly affected, but the approach that, how he chose to feel about that situation in shaping where he is now, and really this feeling that he's just takes every opportunity to develop himself. He has such an appreciation for the sacredness of every second that most of us could benefit from. So, it's not that he's moved into a heartless place or an unhealthy place. He's just moved into a different way of responding to that situation, different feelings. So detachment gives us that opportunity to explore different capacities within the self in responding to what's going on around us, which can bring clarity as well.
It's interesting just having to explore and explain and maybe even experiment with this aspect, because so that we're, for those who've just joined, we're talking about this aspect of don't try to be loving, but really practice detachment, and you will be loved by all. And I wonder if it's about, that statement kind of feels like, oh, I want people to love or like me because I'm loving, but it kind of feels like perhaps maybe it's a certain feeling within myself that would change, and that maybe it's something inside that, like ego, I don't know, like something inside where it's like I'm being asked to let go, basically, of just living. Right, and that's not what it's about.
I remember when I first started this spiritual practice, and a huge part of it is considering myself to be a spiritual being. So I get to experience through that true self-respect. I am detaching from external validation, and I'm freed to experience true self-respect. And I remember so much, everywhere my mind turned, there was ego. I was seeing ego in everything I was doing. And I literally got, is there life after ego? I thought, is there any me left? When I let go, it's incredible. So many different places that we've deposited our sense of value. And when you draw all those out and you're left, what's left? And of course, what's left is the intrinsic or innate sense of self, which is what spirituality is trying to move. But I need to, in order to experience the innate value of the self, I will have to let go of all of these different attachments to external validation. I won't have an opportunity to experience what's really there, the value that's really there. So it's not, I know there's such a feeling that there will be emptiness, there's no life after ego, if you will, that there'll be emptiness, but it's actually, again, trying to clear the way to experience what has always been there, but is covered by so much other stuff.
It's so interesting we're having this conversation, because there may even just be a lack of clarity what detachment means or what spiritual integrity is. When you were sharing, it's quite interesting, because I was thinking about even a physical example. I'm not sure if you ever tried wall climbing before, but there was one single time I actually tried it, and you are hooked onto a harness, and they call this thing where there's a belayer, so somebody who actually, if I'm saying it right, who is on the bottom there, who's basically supporting you and holding on to this rope. So if you accidentally slipped and fell, like, they'll be able to at least make sure there's some tension so that you're not falling off, even though you're hooked onto something and could cause some damage with a jolt. But I remember at one point in time where you do actually have to let go. And it's not easy. Even though you know that there's someone, you're hooked onto a harness and that you'll be fine. But you're holding on for dear life, just like you were talking with that bird. Mm-hmm. And even though you know, it's like as if there's some sort of like emotions or something inside that's like saying no, like a fear, basically.
Yeah, I remember one year I was at the spiritual headquarters of the Brahma Kumaris, and they were having a big welcome program for about, it was a small group for that campus, but I guess it would be about 1,000 that would have been attending, and then many of the senior yogis were going to be on the stage speaking. And I had been asked many months before to be involved in the welcome program in terms of the design. But as things started to evolve suddenly, and I don't actually, this happens quite frequently to me, I'm not sure why, but I don't exactly recall, I don't think there was a conversation where they basically, you're the MC. I don't think I ever was, but suddenly I found they started to talk towards me as if I am the MC. I just thought I'd be behind the scenes, the MC. So, and I remember the program was getting closer and closer, and up to hours before, it kept changing. We're not sure if that senior may be there and maybe not, this might happen. There was absolutely, so basically, just as I'm going on stage, it says, you're going to have to wing it. And I remember, it's just a moments before that I'm told, they're saying, yeah, we haven't gotten this confirmation yet. And I'm sitting backstage, and initially, and this is what attachment looks like. Initially, in my mind, it was like, oh my, I'm going to die. I'm going to publicly die. And it's just all of those crazy feelings just are going ballistic in the mind. And it became, after a while, I almost became disinterested. It was exhausting to have these kinds of thoughts. Exhausting. And I thought, this is going to lead nowhere quickly. And I remember going into the state. Now, in our practice of Raj Yoga, again, it's replacement. It's not emptiness. So I wanted to let go of those thoughts. They were creating really useless feelings, and they weren't going to help me one iota once I got on the stage. And so I thought, rather than think about this stuff, I would rather spend these last few moments before I'm pushed onto that stage with God. I just want to have beautiful moments with the Supreme Soul. It's not like it's going to help me to plan anything, but I just want to have beautiful moments. So this is called, getting that spiritual integrity. And I remember I became very quiet, and was really just this quiet communion, silent communion with God. It was very beautiful, very peaceful. And I kept having people whispering in my ears, saying, this isn't happening, we're not sure. And I would just sort of, yep, no, fine, that's fine. Because, and so it was letting go. I had another option. I think that's why detachment is a struggle. I had another option. And I remember the moment came, and I wasn't, there wasn't all this crazy thoughts. It literally was me and God going on that stage, was the feeling, detached from all those other crazy thoughts driven by ego and fear, and just me and God. I had another option. So I was detaching from this stuff in order to attach to something beautiful. And the something beautiful I was attaching to, I knew would unleash, again, liberate the capacities of the soul. So I remember going on the stage, and one of the things that does happen when you detach from all this stuff and attach to that kind of being is the love, the heart just kind of opens. I remember going on the stage and seeing those 1,000 plus faces and just feeling love. I had no plan as to what would come out of the mouth, or I think I had to dance at some point. There was a lot of crazy things that was coming. They just say, do this now, do that. All of it was completely spontaneous. And I'm not the type who likes to do a dance that isn't planned. What was going to happen was someone was going to speak some poetry off stage, and I was supposed to move, and I didn't even know the poem, but I was supposed to move. And I'll never forget, someone came up afterwards and said, how long did you practice that dance? 0 seconds? But this is the thing, when you attach to that which enhances our spiritual integrity and detach from that which destroys our spiritual integrity, that's what we're talking about.
What you were sharing reminds me of clarity in terms of a very clear, clean vibration. And just when you're sharing, I know we're talking about this point about focus on detaching, practicing detaching. Don't try to focus on being loving. And it was making me realize that what you were sharing was that when you really are going into that experience of who you really are, then there is already a very natural loving vibration that you have, which is actually the impact that is not even this is the impact, but that's the experience that you're wanting. But trying to be loving is you're actually trying to get to that experience, but you're not really getting to that experience because it's not the real thing.
Yeah, again, spiritual integrity or our innate state is loving, peaceful, truthful, light. That is our innate state when there isn't a bunch of other stuff covering it up. Ego being the primary one. Ego has its own ideas of how to be loving and kind and peaceful. It's not the real thing, but it's got its own ideas, and those have become almost safe to us, right? We feel afraid of letting ego because we haven't really developed faith or experience. This is our innate state. I remember in dance, and this happens a lot, it's not just dance, it happens in general, but that it becomes very obvious in dance that when we need to balance, we tend to go into a safe place. And the place that we go into is the last place you want to go to liberate the capacities of the body. So we tend to go back on our heels, we tend to soften our joints. So we want to get our center of gravity close to the ground, so we don't turn on the core, we don't elongate. There's a lot of things we do when we're trying to balance on, say, one leg. And doing those things completely shuts down the capacity of the body. So I remember being in a class once, and I was doing one of them. My weight was going back on the heel. And I remember the instructor, I remember it to this day, it was decades ago, but it stayed with me because it was so significant. The teacher came up to me, and she was very tactful. She says, "Yeah, no, you are balancing, and I notice that you're balancing back on your heel, with your weight back on your heel." And she said, "I know that feels like a safe place to balance, but it's completely locking down your range of motion. It will limit your capacity if you stay back there. You'll be able to balance and it'll feel safe, but it won't be your full potential." And so ego creates the illusion of safe ways to operate. We get very attached to them. And it's a bit like they say we're only using a very small percent of our brain. Our potential is so locked down when we attach to ego's ways of operating. When we are liberated, detached from ego, and that really frightens us, but it means that we are liberating self-respect. And that blows it wide open in terms of our capacity. So spirituality gives us a method. It says, I know you're not going to let go of ego directly, so I'm going to give you self-respect to attach to, and then you will be able to detach. So that's, I think, a huge part of detachment and fear, is that other option, that replacement, isn't understood. Right? So it's terrifying. You're asking me to let go into a void. And that's what we think detachment means, is I release into a void, or into a non-feeling state. And what spirituality reminds us of is the things that we want to move into. So let me experience self-respect based on spirituality, and then letting go of ego will be natural and feel less frightening, right? So, yeah, we try to be loving ego's way, and it leads to expectations, conditional, disappointment, hurt. It leads to a gong show, quite frankly.
So it's not real loving.
It's not.
But there's all this other stuff.
There's so much mixed into it. True love is so pure and unconditional. It's completely impossible where there is ego, attachment, fear, desire. Completely impossible. The real thing we all want. And we all want it and know it because we have a memory of it inside. It is our innate state. So I will have to let go of that approach, which means I need to taste this other possibility.
I know we're running out of time, but we had so many technical blips. We want to give a bit more time since souls have joined us with their patience too. But I have to say that I have heard a couple of situations where individuals I've known where they have attempted to detach, and has actually led to quite a bit of not so good experiences for those who are, and never really actually, I guess you can say, been restored, I suppose to say. And that detachment wasn't the kind of detachment that you're talking about.
Yeah, again, we are really talking about a natural result of, if you want to use the word attaching, a natural result of experiencing a different option. Right? So very often when we're starting the Raj Yoga course, just to try and explain this concept, the example we give, the classic example, is the baby who's crawling around and discovers the pair of scissors that have been left out on the counter. So we now turn around and we are horrified because we see infant playing around with the scissors, this sharp object, as if it's a toy. And we know that there's such a high potential they're going to hurt themselves. We want them to let go of the scissors. Now, if I go up to the baby and say, let go of the scissors, they're like, no way. This is my new shiny toy. And then you might try and they go start to running. That's like even worse, right? We don't want them running with the scissors. No one should be running with the scissors. Thank you. No one should be running with scissors. So what am I going to do? This is where spirituality excels. I need to introduce another option. I grab the car keys. Shiny. Make noise. So I grab the car keys and I start to wiggle them in front of the baby who's holding the scissors, because I want them to let go of the scissors for their own well-being. And they start looking at the shiny keys, and they want the shiny keys, new option. Naturally let go of scissors to grab shiny keys. So this is such a huge part of spirituality, and it relates to the timing sessions, I know. But to be able to taste, we've been seeking external validation so much and holding on to it so tight, and it robs us of our well-being. It robs us of our beauty. And then spirituality comes along with this very shiny thing called self-respect, true beauty, dangles it in front. You are a soul is all included in that. And we sort of look at it, or for some it takes a while before they even see it as a beautiful, shiny thing. Mm-hmm. Sometimes some see it as stones and completely ignore it. But eventually, wow, that's so much more beautiful than what I'm holding on to. I detach to experience that. Right. So that's what we're talking about.
Well, thank you. I know we're actually going to have a second part next week about this aspect of which we seem to need to still address. What is detachment? We seem to need some clarity about that. However, we will continue with our conversation next week if you join us. Spiritual integrity and the relationship with that, and this inner clarity that we do need to use in our day-to-day lives. So we will have a little reflection.
I know it's a long session, so we'll be short and sweet. We love the idea of listening to our heart, caring for our heart. And so now I imagine my heart is not that physical muscle in the body that pumps the blood. I almost feel it's like a jewel box, an invisible jewel box in my inner world. And inside of that jewel box are very precious treasures. Memories. Memories of my highest potential, memories of the greatness of the human spirit, memories of my authentic self. Very pure, ancient memories. We're often so pulled to the outer world as far as we can get from this jewel box inside, but in quiet moments, I can go inside to the very center of my inner world, the heart. Open that jewel box and experience the memory of my true self, my highest potential I, the soul. Not in any way connected to any role or responsibility, relationship, or possession. Completely independent experience of my own worth. The more time I spend experiencing the contents of my heart, this pure sense of self, the easier it will be to start to let go of the old, of that which limits me. The self-doubt, the insecurity, the proving, the showing, the image. Slowly starting to let go. Om Shanti.
Om Shanti. Well, while I go and tend to the IT, Judy, what are some upcoming sessions? There's a hint. There's something coming up next Saturday.
Oh, there's something coming up next Saturday. Is it a workshop? Oh, yeah. I don't know why you leave me to do this. We do have, so every Saturday is Soul Cafe, 2 to 3 p.m. Mountain, well, it's going to turn into Mountain Standard Time soon. Mountain Time, Calgary Time. And Soul Cafe, different format every Saturday, 2 to 3, and it's on both Zoom and YouTube. And we are now into Diwali. The next few days is a celebration of Diwali. So we would like to dedicate the upcoming Soul Cafe this coming Saturday to just recognizing, celebrating the significance of Diwali. It's a beautiful memorial of spiritual development, really spiritual understanding. So we get to look at that this Saturday. It's an hour program. You're most welcome to join. And Soul Cafe is every week. So the weeks that follow will also have other sessions on other topics. We also have drop-in meditation that continues Tuesdays, Thursdays, full hour on Sundays. And is there another workshop this month? Last Sunday of the month, 5. It will be announced. It will be on our website. So always good place to go for clear information is website. And if it's not there, email us. Definitely email us. Contact us. And we will be happy to provide any information or answers to your questions. Thank you for joining this session. Very much appreciate having you with us. And we look forward to the next time. Om Shanti.